I'm doing the presentation about self-regard and self-awareness for emotional intelligence in the workplace. So self-regard is basically the beliefs about oneself. It's understanding and respecting yourself with also knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Now, self-regard often has a kind of a negative connotation with it in this world, especially we have kind of a stigma, which is you're not supposed to really have a high self-regard about yourself because that kind of seems you look kind of arrogant to a lot of people. And then another thing for self-regard is different cultures just have different expectations of how you perceive yourself and regard yourself personally, which it's very important to know as you proceed and go to different places, and especially when you meet different people. Self-regard impact on innovation is the article I chose. And what this article just showed was that what it kind of went into was positive self-regard increases innovation. And that was the question that they were looking at. And the people that they surveyed here were top executives of companies to see if a positive self-regard does in fact increase innovation. The basis of this was they used the upper echelon theory, which the upper echelon theory is basically predicts that a firm's outcome depends on the strategies and decisions and actions of the top executives. And they used three factors in this study, which we'll get into here. Three characteristics tested was selfism, hypercore self-evaluation, and overconfidence. So selfism is basically having your own interest is put before anybody else's interest. Whereas hypercore self-evaluation is you're believing in your own capabilities and that the outcome will be okay because you believe in yourself that you can get through it. Overconfidence is basically overestimating on your abilities to do something. I'm pretty sure almost everybody can say that they have been overconfident, whether it's an assignment, in a sporting event, or something similar to that. Now, the goal of this was to test the innovative behavior, which they defined was being you generate and then you promote something, and then the implementation of ideas is what they described as being innovative behavior. And this was all done throughout a survey. So the findings of this first article was the negative impacts on innovative behavior were for those who had a high score of selfism and overconfidence, whereas those who had a high score of hyper CSE, they had a more positive impact on innovative behavior. And positive self-regard can lead to innovative ideas is what this article found, but a caution to be had was too much self-regard can lead to actually being overstepped on and cause ideas and efficient ideas especially to decrease. So how this could apply to coaching is you got to be open to innovation, especially with game planning, recruiting, teaching, and adjustments, and all those things. You got to be open to having new ideas come from different people and just implementing those new ideas because this world is an ever-changing place, and if you just stay stagnant, you're just going to get behind everybody. Another thing, overconfident is everybody's probably heard of this is just you undermine opponents, and a lack of preparation is when you think that you're just gonna go out and beat the crap out of an underdog. That's one thing where overconfidence really comes to play in sports. And selfism is kind of arrogant in coaching. You could be just someone who doesn't listen to whether it's players or other coaches just because you think your way, like my way or the highway kind of mentality here. And so that's how you can apply this article and what the author was talking about to coaching. Now the next topic was self-awareness, and the article I chose was what self-awareness really is and how to cultivate it. So this article broke down self-awareness into being two different things uh, that make up self-awareness. You have internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. The author said that internal self-awareness is how clearly we see our own values, passions, aspirations fit into our environment and impact others. whereas external self-awareness is just understanding how people view us through those different kind of categories. And so research here has showed that those who have a higher internal self-awareness, they have a higher job satisfaction, increased happiness, and lower stress and anxiety. Whereas those who score high in external self-awareness, research has shown that they have higher empathy and better relationships with those around them. So an example of somebody who would have high internal and external self-awareness versus somebody who has low internal external self-awareness is, for those who have high, they know who they are, they know what they want out of somebody or what they see their vision being. They know to get to somewhere they need to seek opinions of other people, and they really realize the benefit of what they have being by having self-awareness. Whereas those who have low external and internal self-awareness, they are very unsure of who they are, unsure, they don't really have a direction of where they want to go, and don't know how to have people help them along the way, and they often feel frustrated and stuck of where they're at. Now, this article goes into more detail about experience and power and how that helps with awareness. And one thing it showed was that experience doesn't always mean learning. Whatever your experience is doesn't mean you've learned from it. It can actually derail you in some places by making you more overconfident and thinking that you can handle any situation coming at you and you're not adapting. And another one is more power equals overestimated abilities, because with more power you don't have to rely on other people as much because you're, up top tier of the list and you have people below you, whereas because of this kind of hierarchy, you believe that the power, nothing can really stop you, which is why you overestimate your abilities. So in this case, what actually happens is feedback that you get is actually how you develop self-awareness, whether it's feedback from employees, people above you, or people below you, is what really helps develop self-awareness, is one thing that this article went into. The next is introspection. And here, introspection is kind of questioning the why to thoughts and behaviors and feelings is what introspection is. The why is actually what most people believe to use, but instead should not be used at all because it is an effective self-awareness question. You can't really answer too many of these unconscious feelings and thoughts and motives with the word why, and you kind of seek out answers that aren't really there, and which causes you to basically invent answers that are not true. So instead, what we should be asking is what instead of why, because one reason is it keeps the problem objective, and it's not really a subjective question, because you can pinpoint what you need to do, whether it's moving forward or looking back at some situation. And this also helps with making it proactive because it can lead to more questions, and it also can seek what you need to do in the future. So answering why takes more time rationalizing, and it's also can be a denying kind of a question to ask yourself. Where answering what, you can be open to new information and you have potential to keep on learning. So the conclusion of this article is that the best self-aware leaders have high self-awareness, which is the two parts of internal and external. They also seek critics and trying to learn and get feedback, and they also ask what instead of why. And self-awareness has no limit. You can always be learning to improve your self-awareness. There's not just a peak where you've learned all that you can and you've gotten all the feedback. No, you can always try and better yourself. So internal self-awareness in the office, you can improve this internal self-awareness by asking questions to those inside and outside your football program, especially in coaching. You can get help from alumni's perspective, you can get it from a recruit's perspective, you can get it from other coaches or even players, and even those who don't even have any affiliation with football. Some feedback you can get to see how you're doing. Asking yourself what instead of why. What could you have done better to prepare instead of why didn't this happen, right? Because there's by answering by asking yourself what, you can really get more objective answers. Now, external self-awareness in the office, you'd be improving external self-awareness. You can ask coaches what they think to each other or to yourself. You can understand other people and see where they're trying to come from, like empathy. Just step in another person's shoes and see how they're seeing it from their view, and seeking out loving critics. And what loving critics is are for those people who have the best interest in their mind, is what a loving critic is. And the last thing is being willing to learn, is how to implement this into your office.